Hey, everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod here to talk about Michigan State's resounding win. Not really over Oakland in the ugly sweater game, we'll call it, in Detroit with 79-70. Before we start, I'd like to welcome Amy Miller to our paid supporters group at the Scott Skiles level on Patreon. Amy, along with all the other supporters on Patreon and Substack, will get an ad-free audio version of the show. If you'd like to become a supporter, head on over to our support page where you can find the necessary links at tffinots.com/support. Also, a quick note that the time of our AMA has switched from 7 p.m. It's now going to be at 5 p.m. on Monday night. So slight changes because some scheduling with our computer here in our house. Okay, so game was not a great one for the Spartans, in my opinion. The first half was a rough one. Michigan State trailed by as many as 7. Managed to get the lead up to 39-36 by the half. Second half was better, at least at the start. They came out guns blazing. They pushed the lead up to as many as 12, but just weren't able to push it beyond that and really get full separation from the Grizzlies. Something they've had trouble with this season, just not able to kind of finish teams off. So anyway, the game was, though, on a highlight, was his career high in scoring for Cone Carrs. He finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds. He was very good, aside from, a little rough 3-point shooting to start the game. After that first little stint, he really came on and he established himself as a presence in this game. And I think started to look like the player we kind of expected. I still think there's more there, but certainly from his standpoint, I thought we saw a little glimpse of what we could see more of in Carr this year.
Yeah, I think he's one of the guys that can feel good about his performance. And I think one big change is that he was aggressive.
Yeah.
And they needed that against that zone. And in the second half, especially, where he was better and Michigan State was generally better attacking it, a lot of that had to do with him. You saw him going off the dribble, not settling, all very important stuff. So and he also attacked the glass. He had 7 rebounds. So was happy to see that kind of game from him. I will say in the first half, there were a couple of moments defensively, one thrilled with, and Michigan State in general defensively, not a good game in my opinion. But overall, yeah, Cohen was one of the highlights. It was, offensively, despite the fact that it might not have felt like a great effort, and it certainly, I would never say it was a great effort. It was okay. They're 46% overall from the floor. And that's a decent number. And this is a bad defensive team. You heard Bruce, or those watching the broadcast, you heard Bruce Weber talking about, and it's true, that zone, we spent time talking about it. Despite the stats, that zone can screw with you. And it did. Michigan State in the first half, I thought, never looked, they somehow scored 39 points. I don't know how, because they never really looked in sync. I thought that did get a lot better as the game wore on. So, and they're not going to see anybody playing this kind of defense. Trust me on that. This was a one-shot deal. So it's not like they can look at it and say, well, we took our lumps, but, figured it out in the second half, and now we've got that to build on. They're not going to see this stuff. You saw even in the zone, they would come out of it when the ball got to one of MSU's bigs frequently and apply a double team. So it's just it can take you out of your rhythm. Now, the reality is that most people Oakland have played, that has not been successful against. So it's disappointing that it was largely successful in the first half. That's not good. But MSU did enough in the second half to figure it out. Didn't shoot the 3 well at all. I think they were at a point early in the second half where they were 6 for 16, which was okay. Yeah. And then missed their last 6. So the final number looks pretty awful, but a lot of good looks that were missed. I will say this, and we'll come back to it when we talk about the keys. Jeremy Fears right now, his shot looks extremely flat to me. And I think that's the problem. If you saw both of his 3-point attempts barely got the front rim because they were flat. They had no arc. Even some of his 2-point shots, flat, no arc. So that's something, I think I've said this on this show before. I really just wanted to get through this week. get these 2 games played, get them done, get them in the books, and then hopefully over the next several days, they can start working on correcting what ails them right now. And Jeremy Fear's play is one of them. He was not good today in any respect. And that's a problem. That's a big, 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 big problem. He has to be very, very good for this team to be good. And when he's not, they're going to struggle. I mean, overall, what I'm unhappy with was the defense. Oakland's a credible offensive team. We talked about that. Now, they shot the 3 with more frequency and more accuracy than they normally do, but that shouldn't be a total shocker because that's always going to be an element of how an underdog can stay in a game or even sneak out with a win.
Right.
In these kind of matchups is you shoot the 3 well. And they shot it very well. Michigan State, I did not think defended it well. We can all probably cite several examples where the Michigan State defense completely broke down or bad decisions were made or both, and that led to made 3s by Oakland. But Oakland runs good stuff. I mean, I talked about it in the pregame. This Oakland team, like most of Greg Campy's teams over the years, is carried by the offense. And they look like a good offensive team. But that doesn't excuse what Michigan State did. Michigan State did a very poor job in this game in dribble contain. And there has been a backslide in that area, 100%. Now, you can, if you want to take the sunny side up view of this, you could say, well, these last 3 games, basically since Duke, they weren't facing great opposition and they might have taken it lightly. That's not a good trait, by the way, but okay. If you want to take the optimistic side, fine. If you want to take the other end of it, you'd say they've just gotten worse. They don't look like that same connected defensive team right now. And I think some of it, and we're going to talk about this more too, some of it I think is because of rotations. I think that they had something in those first, 9 games, whatever it was, that was, you could have a little bit of variance, especially at the 2 guard, but by and large, it felt like they had a rhythm. They do not feel like they have a rhythm right now. And people think about that affecting the offensive end, and it can and does, but it also can affect you defensively. They're not the same team defensively right now that they were 2 weeks ago. And that's a problem. That's got to get straightened out because they're open. They got one more non-conference game, and then it's in Lincoln.
Yeah,
and
right in the fire.
If you think those guys aren't going to test you defensively, you got another thing coming. The stuff they run, the way they've shot, the way they move the ball, the way they move, period, you'd better be a lot better than they've been the last 3 games. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
I
feel
one other positive was rebounding, obviously.
Yeah,
MSU
right, sure.
did what they're supposed to do there.
Yeah. When it comes to the defense, I really feel like the last 3 games, Jeremy just has not looked like he did earlier in the season. And I don't know it.
No.
And I feel like that is largely the problem right now. Like the fact that
part of it.
That it causes problems with rotation too, ultimately. But
yes,
boy, it sure feels like when he's not what he has, like I said, like what he was earlier in the season, they just aren't as crisp. They don't have as much intensity outside of like Jordan Scott, who has to be one of the most disruptive players in defense. I mean, that guy gets his hands on so many balls. It's crazy how many deflections he gets. But I think that I don't think Jeremy's sick. He can't be sick this long. It's puzzling to me why he's having trouble right now. And I don't know if it's like not a sophomore slump, but just sort of, we started the season and he started really well and then sort of sat back a little bit. And then now it is his first full year of being sort of the guy and the leader on the team. So maybe that's part of it.
He's, in fairness to him, he's played in these 3 games, even though these teams are not on Michigan State's level, their point guard's very good. You started with Mingo, who's been a very good freshman. Then you had Sonny Wilson, very good player. And today, Robinson. So it's not as if he's been going against slugs, but it's also true that the Big Ten is loaded with high caliber point guards. So that's not going to stop. If anything, it's going to accelerate a little bit.
Yeah.
As good as these guys I just mentioned are, Braden Smith, Donovan Dent, Bruce Thornton, on and on and on. It's only going to get tougher. So I agree with you. He has not been as good defense. He's not been as good, period. I talked about his shot. That's true. It's been flat. I think if he gets more arc back, you're going to see a difference in conversion rates. But defensively, he has not been the same player. I agree.
Yeah,
but it wasn't just him.
No.
They had a lot of guys getting blown by today. And the help, getting into the gaps, not there. The communication is not as good. We saw some communication breakdowns today.
Yep.
Just across the board, they are not where they need to be, and they're not where they were 2 weeks ago and before that. We spent a lot of time talking about how unusual it was that MSU was as connected as they were this early in the season. Well, right now they're not. Yeah, and that's got to change. So we're kind of where we normally are at this time of year, which is they got to get a lot better defensively.
Yeah.
So it's not new from that perspective. It's disappointing in that it seemed like they were that much ahead of the curve, and now they're not.
Yeah, they fell back onto the curve. I mean, the other part of Jeremy's game, to your point, the offensive end, 2 points, 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, misses free throw. Just he had 2 rebounds, only 5 assists, 2 turnovers, a couple steals to play 30 minutes. I mean, I recognize there aren't as many assist opportunities, probably, especially when the team's shooting so poorly from deep against this weird zone. But I just like it's one of those things, like for most players, if one part of the game is kind of not working, it seems like the other part doesn't. And that's what was so remarkable about Jaden Akins last year, that even when his offense wasn't working, he was always on.
Yeah,
from a defensive standpoint. But I feel like you're getting a little bit of that of Jeremy, that they're both sort of feeding off each other, and they're both sort of like lackluster.
It could be. It's not an unreasonable thought, I don't think. But regardless of what's happening, he's got to figure it out.
Yeah,
because he's way too important.
Yeah. Other players like Jackson Kohler, his standard 13 and 13, 5 for 9 from the field, hit a triple out of 3 tries, hit both his free throws. 5 of his 13 rebounds were offensive, had an assist, a turnover, a couple blocks, a steal. Thought he looked pretty good. I think he was just kind of a solid performance.
I think the play they got from their starting bigs was much better. Hadn't been too good the last couple games. It was pretty good overall today, I thought. Both ends. They weren't perfect, but defensively, I think they were better. Offensively, they were a lot better. They were converting shots. Now, again, Oakland doesn't do much in terms of rim protection. You damn well ought to convert these, but the fact is they did. And they hadn't been, even against teams that don't do much that way in the previous couple of games. So that was good to see. I thought Jax played okay.
Coop played, had a good game too, 15 points, 5 or 7 from the field, hit all 5 of his free throws, 5 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, a couple assists, a turnover, 3 blocks, played only 23 minutes, I think he struggled a little bit in the first half, kind of like everybody did, trying to contain the dribble penetration.
Yeah.
But after about the first 5 or 6 minutes, he got it sort of figured out, and then they're pretty solid.
I agree with that. I think he was, when I said, it wasn't just Jeremy, I was thinking about guys like him, guys like Cohen, who were struggling to contain dribble penetration themselves. But you're right. He got much better. The team, I thought the team got a little better that way, even though Oakland had a decent second half offensively. It's not like MSU locked them down. I think they were better, and Carson is always going to be a big part of that. Yeah.
And I guess Cohen Carr, not only was impressive 22 points, but very efficient, 8 for 13 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, 5 for 7 from the line. So missed that one front end in the end of the first half. 7 rebounds, 2 offensive, a couple assists, a couple turnovers, a couple blocks, just in 26 minutes. I think that was probably the minute. I think that's probably, my guess, is what they want from a minute standpoint from Cohen, to try and keep him at his maximum sort of speed, maybe up to 30.
They might be adjusting that, because earlier in the season it was more, and they might be adjusting that, and that adjustment might be partially what you say, that they want to keep him at his best. It could also be that they've gained more trust, say, in a guy like Jordan Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's probably a combination of the two. But yeah, this Cohen Carr, now we're talking about, well, now you got to get Jeremy Fierce fixed. Cohen's got to do it consistently, but this was I thought that the game against Toledo was maybe a small step forward. This was a full step forward.
Yeah, right.
So credit to him. He was very important in this game. And as I said earlier, I thought he actually did a really good job against the zone in the second half. He hit one free throw line jumper against it. He was good off the dribble, I thought, when the opportunities were there. So, good stuff from him. Defensively, again, not a great game, but I'm going to take the offensive end and the rebounding and say that was progress.
Yeah, no, I think the rebounding was great. He was battling, and he was using his athleticism to get some rebounds and 50-50 balls that other guys couldn't get to because they can't jump as high. I was impressed too, the fact, he missed his first 2 threes where it's sitting in the corner. And then 2 things. One is that he recognized that shot wasn't there, and he was then willing to drive a little bit more. Sort of like after that first turn. Then once he came back in, he was much better.
But then he was not. I just want to stop you there for a second. There was one moment where I thought that was definitely true. I think it might have been his first basket from the field. He had missed those first 2 jumpers, and then there was a third play where he was open, but the baseline was also pretty open.
Exactly.
He didn't settle. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And then but then also in the second half, when he was in that corner again, he was willing to shoot and he hit one. So then, like the second half, he's 1 for 2 is one way to look at it as well. And so he still is willing to shoot, but he was recognizing that there's plenty of opportunities and lots of room in that zone to attack and to get into the lane. And we saw some nice seals from Kohler and stuff to allow him to get to the hole and score. So great game from Carr. Although, you watch the game, you're like, boy, he could even do more because we've seen it. So it's in that sense, I'm very encouraged by that. So then I'm just kind of going down the list here in the stats. And so the next is Divine, who had a weird game. Just 0 for 1 from the field, just had tried the 1-3, played only 12 minutes, but racked up 4 fouls. He had 2 fouls very early in that first half and played, I don't know, maybe a minute of point guard in the first half. And then he got that second foul and they just went head to the bench. It is interesting how he's sort of gone from the Divine 3 2 games ago, I guess, in Penn State. And now he's kind of looks like the Divine we had before earlier in the season.
Well, he hasn't had shot opportunities. He's been guarded. I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm just saying, I don't think Penn State came into that game respecting him, whereas opponents now are going to at least know that he's a threat. The foul trouble really took him out of sync. I did think of Michigan State's perimeter guys when he was able to play. I thought he looked pretty good defensively. I liked some of what I saw from him, at least on ball. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see about off ball, but on ball, I thought he was the best of a bad bunch. But yeah, they're doing what they're doing with this rotation, and anybody who thought that, this was just about teaching, don't worry about it. Guess again. I'm telling you, the things I'm hearing and more importantly, the things I'm seeing tell me not the case. So right now, Divine Ugochukwu is at best, your co-backup point guard. I'm not sure he's even that.
Then we go to Kurtang. Played a lot of minutes. He had 20 minutes this game. I think I don't know if that's a season high for him, but it's
close.
Pretty close. 10 points, 4 for 11 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, a couple boards on the offensive end, and then 5 assists, 1 turnover. Pretty good. Pretty good activity. His game. Yeah, I thought he was really good.
I liked his game. 4 from 11. It anecdotally, just watching it, didn't seem that bad. I thought he was better than that. But he was good.
That's 2 in a row.
He was aggressive. Yeah, he was aggressive. As you mentioned, the assists, rebounding. There was one offensively he got for a putback that was impressive. I think he earned more minutes going forward, at least for the next game.
Yeah, no, I think he's had 2 good games in a row and
now
started looking more comfortable.
It's about consistency now. Find that consistency. Deliver like this and the Toledo game every time out, and it's going to be a consistent role. You raise the trust level.
Yep. Cam Ward just played 7 minutes, had 1 shot attempt, missed both his free throws. Actually, all 3 free throws. Since there's a lane violation, he still missed after that. A couple of rebounds while he was in there. One of them offensive, had a block.
They got to get him going.
He just got to get him going. I don't know if it's wrist still bothering him or just I'm not sure. He doesn't look himself from what he saw.
Izzo keeps saying it's getting better and better. He doesn't think it's a problem, but I didn't even notice if he was wearing the brace today. But
he wasn't out there much.
Yeah, he's part of it is that I think, Jesse McCullough has been playing well. So it's maybe shifted that at least for the moment, but they need the Cam Ward we had through the North Carolina game. That they need that guy, because you can't have, you can't play Jackson and Carson 35 minutes a game. You can't have slippage.
Yeah.
And and I would also add, I think Cam Ward gives them something that's a little different. When he's right, we've already seen it. I would argue he's actually their best pure low post player.
Yeah, probably
as a finisher, and with his strength and athleticism, he's their best finisher. They can use that. He's been a good rebounder when he's been healthy. They can use that. He's shown good defensive ability. They can use all of that. So that's another assignment for these next, this next week or so, is get Cam Ward back to being Cam Ward. However, whatever needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then the other freshman, Jordan Scott, finished with 6 points, was 2 for 4 from the field, hit a 3 out of 3 attempts, split some free throws, 4 rebounds, 2 more offensive, had a turnover, a block, a steal, played almost 18 minutes. And he was playing some 2 out there as well when Wojcik, I think, was point. Although we've talked about it, it's pretty much you're playing wing, whether you're the 2 or the 3 in some ways. But anyway, I thought sort of typical Jordan Scott game. He looked he's looking more and more comfortable out there and willing to sort of shoot and understanding what he's supposed to be doing.
I'm just speaking for myself. I feel very comfortable when he's on the court. That doesn't mean he's going to play perfectly, but that guy, when you combine, and he's obviously a very intelligent kid. I also think he's an intelligent basketball player, which is not always the same thing, but it is in this case.
Yeah.
You combine that, his head for the game, with his intensity, how hard he goes, and good things are going to happen. I mean, that's just how it is. So very happy with him. I'm going to continue to beat on this drum. To me, the obvious solution is what I would do is I'd start Jordan Scott at the 2.
Yeah.
But if they don't want to do that, then start Kerr and bring Jordan off the bench. That allows you to bring Divine in off the bench at the 1. I'm going to keep saying it. They're going to keep ignoring it. Not that they'd hear it anyway, but you know what I mean. They're hell-bent on doing what they're doing. I don't like it. I don't think many people watching do, but they are seeing something. I don't know what it, I just want to say this. There have been a lot of times over the years where segments of the Michigan State fan base get outraged by somebody playing minutes. Tum Tum Nairn, Mike Keebler, Colby Wallenman. I mean, I can go down. There's
Thomas
more.
Kithier. Yeah.
Usually got right. And I can't think of a single instance where I didn't understand the rationale. Usually with those guys I mentioned, most of the time, it's been about the defensive end. It's like, well, they've got to save some minutes for somebody or multiple somebodies. And this guy, even though he might not be a great pure shooter, whatever it is, he can guard.
Right.
This is the first time I can ever remember I do not understand what they're seeing. I don't get it. I just don't.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about it a little bit later too. I think it's more sort of potential they're looking for. I think that's all I can come up with. Let's talk about Trey Fort. Played again, spot minutes, had to hit a 3 out of 3 attempts, missing a layup. Or actually, yeah, it was like it was not a layup. He had a lob and then it was sort of like somewhat errant pass. And so he had to sort of try to turn on a jumper. Had a couple boards, played 10 minutes. I think, defensively, not great, but not like terrible, but I don't know.
It was more minutes than he got in the last game. So I guess that's progress for him. I'm going to assume they're going to keep working and hopefully find a way to get that defensive end to the point that they feel they can trust him. But yeah, I mean, it was nice. He hit the 1 shot. He hasn't completely lost confidence.
And then Jesse McCullough, who we talked about earlier. So 8 points, 2 for 5 from the field, hit all 4 of his free throws, had just 1 offensive rebound. 2 blocks, played 15 minutes, had a number of turnovers, 3 of them. But overall, I think he's looking really good. I feel like he's right now where I thought he was going to start the season. I thought he'd be sort of further along.
Yep.
The first big off the bench that became Cam Ward, and so like, well, that makes sense. Ward was playing well. Now it's reversed, and now it makes sense watching them play. But I don't know. It could just be circumstance.
Well, I'm with you on that. I thought Jesse would be playing this kind of role from the beginning of the season. It didn't happen that way. And I don't think it was so much Jesse. I think Cam just kind of came and took it. Now, the great thing would be you get Cam back to where he was, and now you've got 4 legitimate big men. That's a big deal in this league. That's a big deal. So it's why I emphasize they got to get Cam Ward back to where he was, confidence-wise, comfort-wise. Whatever that takes, that's got to happen. But Jesse's definitely part of that. I think he's been playing pretty well, and I thought he was good in this game, no question. He's just such a good shooter that I believe every shot he takes is going in. They don't all drop, but he's that good a shooter. And they've talked about Izzo talked about it the other day. How he was talking about how the first time they saw him, he was a sophomore in high school. And I don't know that they were there to see him, but they were knocked out by how much he talked, how he communicated defensively. And I think he's holding up decently on the defensive end too. And I think he's proven to be, you can always get better as a rebounder, but I think he's hanging in there in that end as well. So pretty happy with where he's at.
Yeah, he was playing some 4 today too. I think he was out there with Cooper, I think a couple times. So
that's always been a possibility.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But it shows a versatility, and it's nice having a guy like McCullough too, who is a different look, either 5 or if he's playing 4. So that makes it, I think, more complicated and confusing for the defense, having to sort of keep track of different personnel and what they can and can't do. The last one who played sitting for minutes was Dan Mojic, of course, played 6 minutes, almost all of them in the first half. I think he played of his minutes. He played, it
was 3 and 3.
3 and 3. Yeah. Well, 2 and 4, it says on the stress, but whatever. So he played the same. He didn't really play in the second half until the very end when Izzo was just livid with Jeremy Fears not covering. I think it was Moore who shot the 3 or something. You just kind of left
open. It was right by the timeline. And they didn't get out to the shooter. It was obviously Jeremy's fault because he let him have it. He brought in Denham, and then what happened?
Then they gave up another 3.
Then actually they hung on for about a minute.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy came back in, but they left Denham in. And then what happened?
And then he got wiped out of screen somewhere under the basket. And
he fell. He fell.
Well,
he just fell. First half, it wasn't wiped out. He went under a screen against a point guard that can shoot. This is what I mean. I hate to keep doing this. I don't like being in this position, but I can't stop myself from talking about it. He cannot guard.
Yeah.
He can't guard at the level they need to. And you can say, well, what's Trey Fort doing? What's Curtain doing? All true. All true. Those guys have had defensive issues. We talked about Jeremy's had them lately, right?
Yep.
But in my view, this is a physical deal. Now, today, I think there was at least the one on the first half I mentioned was also a mental error. Why you're going under, I can't imagine that's what they wanted to do there.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And he went under. They say, oh, Trey didn't switch. He went under. He still went under. It shouldn't have taken a switch. You can't go under against a point guard that can shoot like that and pick and roll. And I'm positive that's because they weren't doing it at all the rest of the game. But I think it's a physical issue here. It's a tools issue. I don't think he's big or quick enough to be able to be functional defensively the way they need him to be, the way they need anybody on the floor to be. Those other guys, they're breakdowns, there are problems there. And you mentioned the second half stint, the late in the game stint it started out as a teaching moment for Jeremy, right? That's why he was inserted. But then he kept him on the floor and took, I think it was Divine out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where my problem is.
Yeah.
You want to teach the lesson? Okay. But then the lesson's over because you're bringing Jeremy back in. That's it.
Yeah.
This is going to cost them. I'm still sticking to it. If they do this at Nebraska for any legitimate length of time, I mean more than like a 1-minute cameo, it's going to cost them.
Well, I think you could, in some respects, this game, because they had a nice 12-point lead. And then actually, that's right. The Denham came in and then it just sort of dwindled down to 6 or 8. Just, they weren't able to put the game away. Like that was a turning point with an opportunity to get a stop or two, score a couple times and get the game out of hand, 15, 16, 17 points. Unable to do it, gets down to 8. And now you got yourself a game again. And it's sort of just back and forth around, hovering around 10 to 6 points. Yeah.
That's and that's the thing. It shouldn't, I'm not saying that, there's no impact offensively. That's not great either, but they can survive offensively, I think, with him. From what I've seen,
I think so.
It's a problem in that you're playing 4-on-5, but Michigan State's done that before and gotten by. It's okay. The ball moves okay. He doesn't turn it over excessively. I mean, I think he's certainly competent at that end. It's the defensive end that I just, and to repeat what I said a little bit ago, when I look back historically, when Tom Izzo has done things like this, it's always been based on the defensive end. So I don't understand it here. They cannot think that this is acceptable defense. They can't. Because it's obvious.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about some gutters. We've got the snow melt right now. You probably don't have any snow where you are. I bet it's all melted away. But we still have some.
Very little.
Yeah, we still have some.
Some ice left, not as much snow.
Yeah, I found some ice the other day. Took a nice spill. I was not expecting that. So anyway, make sure you've got your gutters functioning properly. Make sure they're draining well. If that means all the debris out of there, make sure you've got the downspouts working properly to keep all the water and diverting it away from your house or your business so you don't have problems which become very, very expensive later on. Contact the Brothers Who Adjust Your Gutters. They can get up in the ladders even in this weather, take care of those problems for you in order to keep you safe and to keep everything functioning properly. You get 10% off. You mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate. If you just mentioned Final Four, head over to your support page at the Final Four is now on the schedule.com/support. There you can get the links for Greg or Kurt, whether you're on the east or west side of the state. And they sponsor a player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutters, who was Brady Robinson. Let's see. Robinson finished the game with 13 points. He's 4 for 10 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, 2 for 3 from the line, 1 rebound, 8 assists, 2 turnovers, no blocks and no steals. And he was, I don't know. What do you think as far as keeping the gutter? He certainly didn't go off on them, but they didn't certainly keep him in the gutter either.
Yeah, I would say it sits somewhere between. I thought they actually did a pretty good job on him for most of the first half. When they were struggling to guard other guys, I thought they did. So this gets to Jeremy wasn't all bad defensively because I thought they kept Robinson pretty quiet until I'd have to look back to remind myself when the point was that he first scored. And I believe it was a 3. He hit 2 threes in the second half, but they came definitely in the second 10 minutes. And I want to say maybe even the last 5 or 6 minutes. He was very important though for them. Obviously he played a very good floor game. He runs that team. You see the difference it makes for them as compared to say last year when they didn't really have great point guard play. They've got one now. Yeah. At that level, he's going to be very effective. And that's what I would say gives them a legitimate chance to win the Horizon. As they mentioned on the broadcast, they were picked second in the preseason, which is amazing considering they got 4 new starters, a couple of them coming from the D2 ranks.
Yeah.
It was like nobody's seen these guys. Let's be honest. But Greg Campy, I know in the preseason was optimistic about what this team could be. And I think they showed enough. They've definitely righted the ship since, that they had that death, murderer's row schedule early. And they got blasted twice, but they were pretty competitive against Purdue. And now to me, it seems like they've settled in, and I think they're going to be a legit contender in that league, I would think. And a big part of it is him. So not a disaster by MSU, but they didn't keep him in the gutter either.
Yeah. I think one important point is, he averages 8 free throw attempts a game. He had 3 in this game. So
Right.
that definitely shows they were able to prevent him from getting into part of his way of scoring, which is, getting and driving, like you said. So
I do think some of his penetration actually proved to be effective just in creating shots for others, though. You're right.
Yeah.
It's good that they didn't put him at the line excessively, but I think as the game wore on, he was a guy that I think we talk about Cooper needing to settle into it and Carr needing to settle into it. I think he needed to settle into it for Oakland in some ways. And I thought the last 25, 30 minutes of the game, he was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. And he definitely, when he saw Wojcik on him, his eyes lit up. He's got biggest saucers, and he took him right to the rack. And I don't know if he got a score or if he got an end one, or
he got a 3 against him when Denham went under.
Yeah, that was the first half. Of the second half, he went at him, and he had a layup, I think, after that. So, all right, that brings us to Who Cleans the Glass Best, brought to you by the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Friends, if you need your windows washed, and frankly, I know you're not doing it yourself, so make sure you contact the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. If you're anywhere within the Grand Rapids area, they do fantastic work. They'll get those things clean. They'll get the ladders. If you get booking done before the end of the year, this would be before December 31st, you've got 10, 11 days left. You get an extra discount. In addition to the 15% off you get as being a listener to the show, just mention Final Four when you contact Troy and his team. You'll get an additional discount as well. Again, just Final Four. They can do the inside, the outside, the windows. They'll get up there, and they don't have to get the job done before the end of the year. You just need to get it booked so that it gets booked sometime before the end of February. And it can be, of course, your business as well, or high rise, whatever sort of business. If it's got windows or some building, they can take care of it. They've even gone up in the state capitol. So heights don't bother these guys. So contact the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids today. Who Cleans Glass Best? And this was not really much of a contest. You had Kohler, who had 13 boards. You also had Carr. So you had up at 20. Now, I could have taken Carr, but even then it wouldn't have mattered at this point. So you had up at 20. I had Cooper, who had 5, and Ward had, what, did he have 1? I can't even remember if he had 1 rebound. So, yeah, he had 1. So it was a runaway. So you move up to 7. Your lead's back up at 3. You're almost a whole possession ahead of me now. So it's 7-4 heading into the next game.
Sounds good.
All I do is just look over here at the corner of my eye. I can see that basketball waiting to sit on my head. If we
got a long way to go.
We do, but I don't like being down 3 before the Big Ten.
No,
starts.
I'm happy with the lead. Don't get me wrong, but we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. Or as my dad would say, you better be up by 3 than down by 3. So unfortunately, I'm in the down by 3.
The hope is that Jackson Kohler just does enough to where it's pretty much whoever has Jackson wins consistently, right? Because if that's the case, then I'm going to get it. I've got enough of a gap. So I just need to hold serve.
Exactly. And I can't afford to slip up. So he's got to do well against Cornell. That's all I'm going to say. Otherwise, I can't afford any more.
It's a good time to rest him. That's how I see it.
Change the rotation even more, right? That's your favorite.
That's
all right.
right.
So goes and brings us to 5 Keys to the Game, brought to you by Nudge Printing, where you can still sign up for free for the drawing for a free backpack. It's a North Face Gruff Sparty. It's valued at almost $100. Head on over to nudgeprinting.com/win. There you can enter again for free to get that backpack. You can also get any of the great products at Nudge Printing. It's probably a little late to get stuff by Christmas, but I got my stuff for my family. So head on over there today. You can get 20% off if you just type in TIFFNOTS. That's TFFINOTS at checkout. I know it's a hard acronym. That's maybe partly why. That was certainly not part of the plan coming up with the name of the show. It's a great name. It's very memorable, but it's a mouthful, even when it's an acronym. So again, TIFFNOTS is the 20% off. And again, fantastic stuff. I'm wearing my white hoodie right now with a big giant Spartan on the front. And this is my one I have to wear whenever it's a whiteout at home. All right. So first key to the game was zone offense. Okay, maybe it looked rough at times, but they did okay, but I don't know. I guess overall I say it's probably, if you had to give it a grade, a C minus maybe.
I'd probably go C plus, but we're in the same range. I say that because the second half was much better.
Yeah.
You know, they had 7 turnovers in the first half. They only had 4 in the second, I believe. They shot 46% from the floor, which is okay. I have a hard time saying that was bad. But it wasn't great. It wasn't great. But again, I only evaluate it, and I know I said this in the preview too, it only mattered for this game because you're not going to see that again.
Right. Because even if someone's going to spring a zone on you, like let's say Duke did, it's like a more traditional zone. It's a 2-3 zone or whatever, 3-2.
It's a totally different thing. You have to, and if you noticed, and I mentioned this in the pregame, against a matchup, you frequently will see teams run a lot of their man stuff because a matchup does have some man principles in it. And that's exactly what we saw. We, not all the time, but enough. We would see Michigan State still running some pick and roll stuff. They still tried to do those same things. And then at other times, depending upon how Oakland was guarding them, it was more, get the ball into the gap, kind of passing to try to get a good look. Yeah, I thought it was acceptable-ish.
Yeah, and
not great.
It's funny with that zone because I can see why Campy says he doesn't know what it is. I mean, obviously he kind of knows what's going on, but they sort of change the principles because sometimes that pick and roll, it helps, and sometimes it's just, it doesn't really cause any movement with the defense much. And so that's what's so weird about it. You can never really get comfortable with it because it seems to shift and sort of its core foundation is just changes, I think.
And in the first half, I thought a lot of the problems were created by the fact that Oakland was haphazardly, and I don't really mean that. I think they had a definite plan for when they did it, but they were coming with doubles when MSU's post players got the ball. That's not a normal function of a zone. It's like you're leaving the zone to go to something that you typically see in a man-to-man where you bring a second defender, right? And that really, and Michigan State knew it was coming. Bruce Weber said he spent yesterday with the MSU coaching staff and that it was something that they had worked on. So they knew it was coming. But I think what made it difficult was that they knew it was coming, but you didn't know when.
Yeah.
And it took MSU a while. And I thought in the second half, they did a much better job of handling that.
Yeah. I think the Bigs sort of made the decision they're either going to go quick or they're going to wait for that double to come in and just be prepared right away to pass it. Like there was less indecision, I think, in the second half.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I'm always an advocate of going quickly into your move.
Yeah,
Don't wait. Don't settle it to allow the defense a chance to react, and I do think they were better with that.
All right. The second key to the game was defensive focus. And I think we kind of already answered this question. Not great.
Nope.
I mean, there weren't any times. There were like a couple plays in a row where you thought they kind of had something cooking, and then it just, I don't know, they just were not sort of locked in.
Yeah, it was disappointing, particularly with dribble penetration. I think you could kind of start and end there as the main culprit. They just did not do the job.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of this is, and to your point earlier about the rotation, I think it's there are lots of lineups out there that are just not used to playing with each other as much during game situations. And so I think it just makes it harder to sort of know when to help and where. I don't know, that might be totally wrong, but I feel like that contributes a little bit to the fact that they are able to, they just don't quite know what they're supposed to be doing out there.
I don't think it's wrong. I think that they've lost some cohesion defensively, and hopefully they can get it back over the next week or so because it needs to happen.
Yep. Third key to the game, the boards. This is something that Michigan State definitely did well. They had a 42-26 overall edge. They had 15-6 edge on offensive rebounding with an offensive rebounding rate of 45% and a defensive rebounding percentage of a little over 80%. Second chance points, 15-5. So decided a definitive edge there for Michigan State. Although we'll note it was a 10-0 edge at halftime. So they didn't really gain anything on second chance points against Oakland in the second half. But overall, they did what they needed to do. I think they still could have been better, but again, it was just offense a little too janky in that first half, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not going to say it struck me exactly the same way it did against Penn State, but at least vaguely similar. Where like the numbers look great, but watching it, I didn't feel at least that Michigan State was just dominating them the way we see in some games where, you'll see MSU just tattooing the opponent.
Yeah.
What was the offensive rebounding rate again?
45%.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, you can't complain, but
they were good there, but I didn't think they were great.
Yeah. Well, I felt the same way. I felt like there's more there.
But it also says something about the standard we're talking about here, right?
Right. Had this been 5 years ago, we'd have been thrilled, or 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
They did. This is not a good rebounding team. And you know what? The final numbers look pretty much the way they're supposed to in a matchup like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that this means the world, because it's an imperfect stat to be certain, but they flashed it on the screen. MSU came into the game third in the country in rebounding margin, and Oakland, I think, was 303rd. That kind of tells you where these teams are at.
Yeah, and the margin was 16, so clearly. Fourth key to the game, number 1, that's Jeremy Fears.
Yeah, not good.
I mean, just not the Jeremy we need, and the one we've kind of got used to seeing early in the season, where you thought, oh, we've got the best point guard, or at least as good as the other opposing point guard on the floor.
First 9 games of the season. Even though he went 0 for 10 from the floor, I did not think he played a bad game against Duke. He missed some shots, but I thought his floor game, he had 13 assists in that game, if I remember correctly. I thought defensively he was where he needs to be. That was not a poor game. That was just a game he missed some shots. But since then, these last 3 games, we are not seeing the same Jeremy Fears show up. So that's got to change.
Yeah, it almost feels a little bit like a guy who just is not getting up for the game. Like, it's a big game, and so he's up. But that's playing. But Penn State was a big game in some respects, right? I mean, it's a big 10 game.
It should be. It should be. How 19, 20, 21-year-olds process it, I couldn't tell you. It should be. I do think that's some of what's going on, but I'm not ready to just chalk it up to that. Say, hey, don't worry. When they get to Lincoln, they'll be fine. You can't function that way.
Yeah.
We talk about this in these kind of games frequently as a key, like respect the game, meaning you're not playing to your opponent. You're playing to the standard you have for yourself. And I do not think he's been anywhere close to doing that recently. So that's got to change. I know this much. If they don't get Jeremy Fears back to pretty much where he was from the start of the season to the Duke game, this is not going to be a team that's going to do the things we thought they might be able to do as of 2 weeks.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely, I mean, there's so many parts. There's not one player that's so dominant, like first round NBA pick, right? That is draft pick that you can just rely on that. There are a lot of pieces that have to play really well for this team to be as successful as we hope that they can be. And he's definitely a big part of it. He's one of them.
Well, he's the most important by far.
Sure.
I would say, I understand what you're saying. They don't have that 20-point a night scorer. That's true. But what they do have, and what made us all say this team is ahead of where last year's team was, it's ahead of where the vast majority of Izzo teams have been. What they had is a point guard who makes everybody else better, runs the whole thing at both ends. He's also the head of the snake defensively as well.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, 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 huge asset when you have that player. It means that the bit about not having a first-round draft pick doesn't mean as much, because you've got a guy who's going to create scoring opportunities for people. He's going to make others better. That's job one for a point guard. And they had that. They have not had it lately.
Well, I guess the one encouraging point is that he's a redshirt for sophomore. And so sometimes I think it's easy to forget that there's still a whole lot of growth there that's going to come.
I'm not out on Jeremy Fears.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not.
I'm just saying I'm as big a believer in him as anybody. It's just facts are facts. And I think my assumption is he would be the first one to tell you he hasn't been nearly good enough.
Yeah.
And he knows he can be good enough.
Right.
Because he's done it.
the fact that Izzo went totally bananas on him in late in that second half,
Yep.
I think is a testament to the fact that Izzo also thinks there's way more Jeremy there than that he needs to unlock. But I do think they're probably in sync. And it's interesting that conversation. Well, I don't know if you can call it a conversation that Izzo's having with Jeremy, but it was very different than the ones you'd see with AJ Hogarth. I don't want to go and spend a lot of time with it, but like, there was engagement on both ends of that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he knows there's some guys that Izzo knows he can go ape shit on.
Yeah.
And I think Jeremy is one of them.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the fifth key to the game is rotation. And this is, of course, reflection of Denamoji playing backup point guard, Divine playing coming off the 2, and then it sort of causes a big log jam at the 2 as well. Not only a problem with having the liability having Denamojic out there as your from a defensive standpoint, but also it kind of limits the minutes and sort of ability for the Tangs and the Scotts and the Forts to get out there when you're also competing again with Divine Ugochukwu in those minutes at the 2.
Yeah. I think it was a broader problem today. And a problem I understand. They're trying to get Cam Ward back in. They're trying to, the 2 spot continues to be musical chairs who's playing well. But the stuff at point guard is where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's my primary concern. And I'm not seeing it. I don't understand it. I keep saying I don't want to belabor it, and I feel like I'm belaboring it, but it really does. It really does worry me because it's feeling to me like it might take a loss to get them off this. And that's not where you want to be. That's in this Big Ten where I really do feel like there are 3 teams that have clearly shown themselves to be at the top. Well, you know what? Purdue doesn't go, if I remember correctly, Purdue plays home only against Michigan State, Michigan, and Illinois.
Yes,
so they got a leg up right out of the chute. Michigan has looked very good so far this season. Are they going to continue at that level? I don't know. But they're a threat, clearly. You can't give games away if you want to defend that Big Ten title. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And my concern is that's what it's shaping up to be. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, and it's tough that the first game back is against Nebraska. Now, maybe it's best. Maybe it's good to get a tough road game right at the start because everyone's going to get focused because this is an historic Nebraska basketball team this year. I mean, I was just talking to Dom earlier that he's been projected as a 3 seed right now. I mean, whether that holds or not,
wow.
But they're 11-0. I mean, they've got a couple big wins.
I wouldn't go quite that. I mean, I trust him. I know. I'm just talking when I think about quality of a team. I'm not sure that I would put them in what amounts to the top 12 just yet, but they're real close. If they're not, I would say that.
Yes, exactly. And his point was just they've earned it and they've got at least by the numbers and every metrics that's where they should be.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure
whether he doesn't. He also does not think they'll be. He thinks they'll end up probably like around a 7, but he could be wrong. I mean, they could continue winning, and that's going to be the ultimate decider, of course, is where your final season is going to be.
Yeah,
but
it'll be interesting. But we got a long way to go.
Well, the whole point is, I think this one. I know you've called your shot that they're not going to get off this until they lose. I think I'm calling my shot that I think they're done with this experiment. I think it was an experiment. I think
this was it. Today was it.
I think so.
I hope you're right. And I will admit
there
were 2 points where that thought crossed my mind. One was in the first half, they went to Divine at the point before they brought Denham in. Briefly. Very briefly.
Exactly. That's what I thought too.
And then down the stretch, there was a moment before Jeremy made his mistake, and that game was still competitive. They needed to put it away where they had Divine and Jeremy out there together. And both those were moments I thought, okay, maybe they're turning the corner on this, but then, I saw enough to make me doubt that.
Well,
we'll see.
I feel like with that evidence, I saw Denham, and
I hope you're right.
I think that it was more obvious his struggles today than it was even against,
I think it's been obvious the last 3 games.
Well, yes, but
there's ample evidence.
But I think there was, yes. And I think Izzo was trying to get Divine to play differently from the point, but I do think the fact that he got had when it got to foul trouble today, sidelined whatever they had planned. This is my theory.
Well,
I could be totally wrong.
No, that is worth mentioning. I think you've got a fair point there. Might that have changed the plan a little bit? Maybe. But I also don't know if look, Izzo's always a, auto bench guy, as they say, with foul trouble.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It doesn't explain the last 2 minutes.
It doesn't, except that was sort of, I mean, we'll let it go. This is just my theory, and we'll see. I think I'm right, but
I hope you're right.
I really hope I'm right. I know you hope I'm right too, because I just don't want to see this team to lose unnecessarily. There could be plenty of opportunities for them to lose without like giving games away. And
that's what I'm uptight about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm uptight about. You've got, they've got some home games after that it feels like, they've got a chance to win those.
Yeah. USC, Northwestern.
Yeah. But, even if they did this stuff, but that Nebraska game, don't give that away. Give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Some other things about the game, I think just briefly, just some of the stats. Fast break points, 12-8 edge for Michigan State. I think they had it. So they got some fast break. You don't expect to get much. Most of it, I think, was off turnovers, which interestingly, before you say something, so an 11-12 edge in turnover. So they were behind. I think they had 7. It was like a 7-5 mark at the halftime, but they scored 22 points off 12 Oakland turnovers, and Oakland scored 11 points off of Michigan State 11 turnovers. So kind of interesting that Michigan State made the most of the extra possessions, more than Oakland.
I think Izzo's still going to be, after he felt pretty good about what they did against Toledo with the break, I think he's still going to be a little bit disappointed with the transition game. But that's one of those things. Again, you can't explain everything this way, but I think rotations, it's going to be so important. And it's funny because I didn't think we were going to have this conversation. If you told me 2 weeks ago we'd be having this conversation, no way.
Yeah.
They've got, because it really felt to me, other than the 2 spot where you knew
right.
There was chairs, but that's okay. That's not, those guys are all going to play, and that. And so if one guy is playing more minutes in a particular game than another, that's not such a big deal, to me at least. But now it really does feel like what they had established over those first 5-6 weeks is now gone. And they're back to where they normally are this time of year, which is you got to get your rotation set. And in particular, you got to sort out that point guard spot behind Jeremy, Yeah. And now you got to worry about what I would say are clearly 2 of your 4 most important players in Cohen Carr and Jeremy Fears. I mean, I'm not ready to declare Cohen back yet. Good step today, but he's not back yet. Got to string a few together. But you've also got to worry about them. So for a team that's in the top 10, only has the 1 loss, has got some very big wins, we should be feeling really good, kind of the way we were before the Duke game or even after the Duke game. And speaking for myself, but I also think I'm probably speaking for a lot of Michigan State people, you're not feeling quite as good right now. There's work to be done, real serious major league work, to get this team back to the spot where they seem to be, where you feel like, they can play with anybody. They can win the Big Ten again. So, status quo after all that.
I will also say that with Izzo in the non-conference before the Big Ten season starts, he's always trying to find out what's going to work best. And I think you don't know. And we've seen that year after year where there's certain players emerge and they tend to be more than we thought or less than we thought. And he is not able to have, not been able to, I guess, have the time to tinker as much because of the big games they've had. You can't mess around during the Iowa game, or certainly, North Carolina and things like that. And so he's not had the cream puffs, the tomato cans in order to work on stuff. And so he's taken the opportunity, the last little stretch here, to try and do that. That's also a bit of evidence I'm going to hold until I've been proven wrong. that he's just doing that as well.
That's a fair point. It is. And he used that exact word, tinker, this week about what he's looking to do and what he has been doing the last game or two. All fair, but I guess my thought is this. Why I'm concerned is I would be totally behind that idea if the tinkering was, let's play Divine. Let's try to get Jeremy off his feet a little bit more. Let's play Divine, 12 minutes instead of 8 or 9 at the point. I'd feel good about that, even if the results were uneven. I'm like, okay, you're making an investment in a guy that you really do need to be reliable at that spot come March. That's not what they're doing. So it's the type of tinkering that I'm dismayed by. But still time. We'll see. If you're right, I'm going to be very happy if we see a more standard kind of early season approach in the Cornell game.
I would expect too that your Cornell warm up, you're going to want to try and get it as I won't say normal, but as sort of like set as what you're planning to bring into Nebraska. That's sort of like okay, this is our last warm up. Okay, we've done all this stuff. All right, now this is what we think we're going to do. Try it out, see how it works, and then hopefully go into Nebraska. I think that ideally that's what you'd want it to be. Again, we'll see what transpires. It may not be. Any other last thoughts? Not about the rotation?
No, I guess we'll see everybody on Monday at 5 for the AMA, and then we're into the holiday break.
Yes, and I will not be wearing an ugly sweater, just to be clear. And those were, by the way, those were probably their best set of ugly sweaters. Oh,
easily. I read the story that it was Izzo's, I believe, his cottage, the neighbor at his cottage on Lake Michigan that designed them, and they were top notch.
Yeah, they need to leave Lupe in charge, because I don't think Greg is married at this point, so it's probably not a good thing for a guy to pick out the things like matching Grinch sweaters. So, so like Rod said, we'll be back on Monday at 5. If you're a paid supporter of the show, you can head on over and send an email to me. If you're not, you can certainly jump on, do super chat during the YouTube recording. Well, if we don't have a ton of questions, we have other stuff to talk about. Speaking of Big Ten and things like that. So we'll see you then. Again, head on over to your support page at the Final Four is on the schedule.com/support, where you find links to all our sponsors to the show. So until next time, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go green.